Hello, and welcome to the Innovia Conversation. I'm Steve Waltz.
And I'm Jeff Prgalski.
And today, Jeff, we have meet one of our all-star project managers, Gino Pack. Welcome, Gino.
Woohoo!
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I think Gino is our first project manager, isn't he, Jeff?
I believe you are correct. The elusive project manager demographic. We finally get one.
We like to sit in the background to make sure everything's running smooth.
Yeah,
and you're always busy, right?
That too.
When my cousin's a project manager at Notre Dame, she goes, "You actually built for project management?" And I'm like, well, it's kind of important, you know. It just runs people's software, their ERP system. That's all.
Right. The correct question, the correct response to that was, does Notre Dame actually pay you for project management?
Exactly. But Gino, welcome. We're glad to have you on, and for our listeners, we've had, let's see, I know we've had pretty much members of our leadership team on. We've had John Grant, and Holly's been on a couple times. She somehow finds ways to sneak on here more than other people, Gino. So if you want to get on again, I would ask her for some tips.
I will. She's a people person, so she loves talking to everyone.
But I think Holly kind of brought you over here, talked with you about coming over. Is that correct?
She did. I met Holly through Dynamics Communities NAV, and we served on the board together there. We also served as co-chapter leaders, not of the same region, but a separate chapter. So I got to know her there. I got to hear her passion for love working with the community, love working with NAV and Business Central in general. And I shared that same passion. I think my first time going to NAVUG, I spoke at 2 sessions there, and I loved every second of it. And one day I got a message from her out of nowhere saying, "Hey, Gino, I switched over to the partner side and they're looking for project managers. Can you send your resume over to my boss, and we'll see if we can get you on this side?" And so I did, and that's how I came aboard. It was something, I was not looking for another job at the time, but the opportunity arose, and I'd been working with NAV for 10 years at that time. And I was like, you know, why not take this leap of faith?
Nice. And as Holly says, she brought you over to the dark side, to the part.
She's done that with a couple of people for me, from what I hear.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to think, you know, what month did you come on board last year?
I started in March of 2019.
Oh, so you're coming on close to a year.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm almost there.
Well, we're wonderful. And so, Jeff, do you have any questions that you want to fire at Gino, since we have him for about 20 to 30 minutes? What do you think?
Let's see. Well, I guess this might be selfish, but for my own enlightenment, you said you worked with NAV for 10 years prior. In what? Yeah. So you're a project manager here at Innovia, but in what ways did you work with NAV prior to joining us?
So my previous job that I was with, I was at the company for 10 years, and NAV was the primary ERP software that my previous company used. So I worked at a company that primarily manufactured and distributed eyewear. So you go to the doctor, you see, you know, you're on the board and you see all the frames that you get to choose from. My company designed, produced, and distributed those frames for the eye doctors. And we used NAV. And I started there when I was just out of high school. I started in the warehouse picking orders, and the company grew really, really fast, and they were in need of an IT department. So I proposed a job description to my boss, the owner at the time, and I was made director of IT for the company, and I was doing that for about 6 years. And I got to use NAV because that was the core of our business. That was the central function of everything that we did. All of our orders went through there. All of our tickets came out of there. Our customer information was in there. So it was very, very important to the way we did things. And I had a great mentor. I worked with my previous partner closely and got to learn how to use the software. I got to learn how to administer the software, and I had a little bit of fun writing some customizations. I'm not a developer per se, but I can add a field to a page. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, we might have to talk. We might have to talk after. My demo environment needs a little help. So
there you go. I fell in love with software. And then my previous partner said, there's this user group that's out there, and why don't you join it? And I joined and got to know the software even more from that.
Very cool.
Awesome.
And
so, yeah. And I would say that from the perspective of, just someone who's been at Innovia for the last 11 years, that, a big change and improvement in our company has been the development of the project management team and how good you guys are at doing your job at ensuring that projects come in on time, on budget, and when there are extenuating circumstances or whatever, staying on top of it. So that's actually, like, when I look back over the last 11 years and what has led to our success, I think that besides the addition of Steve Waltz, the one of the top 3 reasons is the project management team and how good you guys are. So I'm happy that you're a part of our team.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm very happy to be here. It's turned into a passion of mine.
It's great to have smart people. So I have Jeff on this list. I'm going to add you on this list. The people you do not want to play Jeopardy with. Again, all these smart people, Jeff.
I don't know how far I'd get.
I got out of high school and I put together an IT program and a plan. Next thing you know, I'm running everything. So it's great to have people like that. And that's very cool, Gino. And so a question I have for you. So did you ever do project management prior to Innovia?
I did, yeah. So a lot of my role at my previous job was, I would consider it a project management role. We had a long wish list of technology enhancements we wanted to do to our environment, and my job was to work with ownership to make sure that we prioritized that list and then executed them. So it was my job to find the vendors and contract them to work with. It was my job to coordinate the execution of the projects. And while I was at my previous company, I project led 2 NAV upgrades as well. So from NAV 4.0 to 2009, and then from 2009 to 2016. So I was involved as the project lead for both of those major projects.
So is it fun dealing with adults that really are not motivated to do things? Sorry. I'm just, it's kind of like sales, right? Because it's people dealing with people. And if they're busy in their work, and here's this project manager trying to basically make the project, hey, look, I know you got to do your job. I understand that, but we need to get this done to meet the timelines. And it's, some people just, don't like to be, what we say in sales, no one likes to be told what to do. They want to know what to do. But I think sometimes as a project manager, do you have to give, how many times do you have to give helpful reminders during the day? Is that part of it, or am I missing the mark on that?
It can be part of it, and it depends on who you're working with. I've worked with people that just didn't care to, no matter how temporary whatever task they had to do was to complete a project, they didn't want to do it. And then there's other people I've worked with that are like, yeah, this is going to be so much better once we're there. I know it's going to be, a headache for a little while because I'm doing additional work, but we'll get there. And I, to be honest, I love working with both types of people, because even though you run into some people that may feel inconvenience, there's a way there's a way to get them involved, and they usually turn around in the end and realize that what they're doing is for the better, and it's only temporary. So it's my job to work with everyone. It's my job to understand everyone because everyone's in a different place, and it's my job to honestly be understanding that that most people who are involved with these type of projects have full-time jobs. They're the CFO. They're customer service. They have 8-hour work days, and try to fit in 2 hours of testing a day into an 8-hour work day just sometimes doesn't work. So, it's fun to work with a little bit of everyone. Doesn't matter the type of culture that I'm working with.
That's wow, Gino. That's awesome to hear. I think we lose sight of it sometimes because we kind of get in our silos, right? Everybody, here's my task, leave me alone. I'm going to get focused on doing it, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, we're doing either a full-fledged ERP implementation, re-implementation, upgrade, doing an ISV, and now someone's day just got totally rocked, right? And I think so. I know another job that I couldn't do. I told my wife I could never teach junior high kids like she does. Now I know I can't be a project manager. God bless you guys. So, well, cool. So, Jeff, what other questions do you have for Gino since we have him on this?
Ooh, let's see. I've got some probing questions. So, as I've been an account manager and sold 2 or 3 projects in my entire career here, I'm interested in what you could share with our listening group about what you think from an end user perspective makes projects go better. Like, what's important for a successful project from an end user perspective? What do you as a project manager want to see from an end user to make things go well?
Good question. So, a couple things off the top of my head, and this is just coming from personal experience, not just my limited time project managing here at Innovia. Is communication is key. I think from the beginning, starting off the project with a kickoff call that explains expectations, realistic expectations, not putting too much on each other. If they're struggling to get something done, be honest about it, talk about it. And to be honest, another big one is testing. I think that's the big thing that probably would hold up most projects from moving forward is not the right testing. Okay. UAT testing is very important in any project. And sometimes if UAT testing goes south, you can have a struggle during go live. So, and I think that still even comes down to communication. I think communication is the central core of managing any project. Because you've got a group of tasks, you've got a bunch of tasks that need to complete, and then you've got people with all different knowledge sets. Like you have people who are good in warehousing functionality. You have people that are good in the finance functionality. You have me, who is a project manager who's here to lead the project, and then you have the developer, which I wouldn't even begin to be able to discuss anything around development with them all coming together to try to reach one end goal. So I think communication is probably the core theme around what I'm trying to say.
Okay. And along those lines, then, do you find that every project has a different requirement around communication? I've been involved in projects where I swear I was copied on like 30 emails in a day from a net. It was because, there was something that was critical. But in terms of like, that's something that you work out with the end user in terms of what the pace of communication is for the project.
Yes. So at the beginning of the project during the kickoff call, we typically establish what's called a communication policy. And within that policy, it shows all the key users from the customers or end users perspective, and then it shows all the key users on the Innovia side. And then there's a section that explains how communication is going to happen. So are there going to be weekly status calls? If so, who is going to be on them? Are there going to be weekly status reports? If so, who is going to be on them? I've had situations where I wanted customers where the actual project management, where the project plan is managed from their side, because they want their team's tasks included in the project plan as well. So it really is just defined in that initial kickoff call how the customer wants, how the customer deems it to be the most efficient. We typically provide recommendations. We do have, your standard, you'll get a status report weekly. We'll have a status call weekly, but there are some customers who say, well, I don't need the status report because I can see the project plan, or instead of a status call once a week, let's do it every other week because we know things are running fine. So it differs between every project and what the customers or the end users requirements are.
Got it. I will say that this isn't anything recent, but I would say that I've never heard a customer complain about too much communication. I have heard complaints about not enough. So as I said earlier,
could not agree more. And that's one thing that I try to strive to do also, is to make sure I'm in communication with the customer consistently. And sometimes, as you just mentioned, it could be over communicating, but I want to make sure I'm not leaving the customer or the end user out of any information that they would want to know.
Gotcha. Yeah. And actually, just so we're clear, the days I was getting 30 emails from Annette, I mean, it was actually appropriate. I mean, I think an important part of the success of projects is having a leader who is on both sides. I mean, this is just guessing, but on both sides that, has the tenacity to get things done and stay on top of people, because as you mentioned, the different people in the different moving parts that as a project manager you have to align. You've got the end user group, the partner, and then a lot of times you have ISVs and third parties, and that was the experience where she was having to stay on top of someone outside of the two main groups to get something done that was critical to the project.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're bringing a bunch of the project managers, sort of the glue that's bringing together individuals from many different parties into working on one project.
And I think, Gino, kind of what Jeff was going to is that you got some people that want to know every day what's going on, and you probably got some people that are like, why am I getting all this communication? And so, I'm sure it's a challenge, but it's the mindset of people want to be kept in the loop of what's going on, right? And when I talk with people that are, looking at Innovia, the number one thing I always hear them say is that they don't get back with me, or they don't communicate, And, to me, I'll ask them, I'll take it a step further, like, well, I mean, in your mind, how long is that? And so when I hear them say 2 or 3 months, I don't feel so bad. But it is common. It's a tough thing. And, one of the things that when I present and talk about strategy and, for companies to kind of that are trying to, take it to the next level on sales, is that in most companies, 70 to 80% of projects are under budgeted. Mm-hmm. Right. And you think about all these smart people, all these companies, but yet why do companies always go on the low side of a budget? Like, so I was, as you guys know, and Gino's in Chicago, I'm a Cub fan, and I was reading an article, Gino, about 3 weeks ago that the Cubs are now at $1.1 billion.
Wow.
On the build around Wrigley Field, and the budget was $600 million. But yet Crane Kennedy, the president, still has his job. So, hey, he blew it by $500 million, and he still got a job, right? Mm-hmm. So, but how do how do they miss the mark that much? And is it human nature, or why is it? Because and to give us like a typical project, you're working with somebody, and is it like a new car? You're going shopping for a new car. You're thinking, I'm going to spend $25,000. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, for another $3,000, I can have a sunroof and and nice wheels. Oh, for another $2,000 on top of that, I can get all-wheel drive. Next thing you know, you're at $34,000. You just blew your budget. But I mean, I guess how often do you deal with that side of things on the finances? So I mean,
It depends what type of the sales cycle it is at. If it's a signed agreement, and we're in the middle of a project. I think that a lot of it comes down to paying attention to budget. It's very important, and that's part of what I deliver to the customer as part of their status is, okay, where are we at with budget? Where are we at with our tasks? Do I see anything that is creeping up close that's making me nervous? And it's my job to make sure I'm staying on top of that and letting the end user know that, hey, we're coming close to budget on a particular area of the project. That are we close to the end of that task to where, okay, maybe it's not that big of a deal, or are we just beginning of the project and we just blew most of the budget on trying to complete a portion of this task that we did not anticipate or that was not anticipated. So it's important to me to make sure that the customer is informed on where they're at when it comes to budget that was signed at the beginning of the project, and communicating that accordingly.
And I think, and Jeff, Jeff's been an account manager for a long time, is that, we try to set the right expectations for our customers. And, it's, sometimes when we give them numbers, they look at us like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, this is what we think it's going to be. So, when you try to scope it out, right? So if there's a number involved and we scoped it out correctly, did the right discovery, it's part of our, we have our monthly meetings, right? We want to be on time and on budget. And I think as a company, we do a great job, but I always kind of wondered on the project side of things, especially when we have a newer customer, right? They kind of can see maybe what the software can do. And they never really thought, maybe we didn't know what to ask or they didn't know what to tell us, right? So as a project manager, you would say, okay, we're going to stay on scope in this project and we can talk about that later. Or how do those conversations normally go?
Can you repeat that one more time, Steve? I didn't catch the question.
I can't remember what I just said, but no, okay.
And I wasn't listening.
It sounded like you were making a point, and then there was a question at the end that I didn't catch.
That's right. I want to see if Jeff was paying attention, but he doesn't sometimes. Well, we got to have another side conversation about Jeff, yeah. Gino. We'll do that one after this. So my question is that, we try to set up the projects, our account managers, and it really depends on the size. But let's say we had a project that was maybe several hundred hours. And, we try to ask the right questions, do discovery, because, one of the goals of our company is to be on time and on budget, right? But maybe they didn't realize because they came from either another partner or they didn't utilize the system the way they should. And it's like, oh, wait a second. I didn't know it could do that. Oh, I wanted to do this, kind of in the middle of a project.
Yeah.
And so, we try to minimize that. I think we do a really good job of it. But as people kind of see that maybe, so they call you up, hey, Gino, I know we agreed upon these hours for this, but I wanted to do this, right? Do you ever get those calls? And if so, how do you handle that?
I do. And I think it just depends on what part of the project it's in. If it's early on in the project, I'll be, either way, I'm frank and honest with the customer. I'll say, okay, well, we're at this phase of the project right now. This is where we are with budget. It's going to take X amount of time to complete this request that you're asking for. And, I'll tell them, I'll be honest with them. I say, well, I see the budget's looking good right now. It doesn't look like it's going to affect the budget by adding this functionality or making this change. So if you'd like to move forward with it, I'll send you a change request, just sign off on it and we'll be good to go. Now, if it's at a certain portion of the project, like if the customer comes to us 2 weeks before go live or in the middle of UAT, I'm certainly not going to say no. I'm not. My job is to advise the customer, and ultimately they'll make the decision. Okay, so I'll explain to them if we're later on in the project that, okay, this is where we are with budget. This is how long it's going to take to do this modification. Now, you are in user acceptance testing. We don't want to be introducing large modifications in the middle of user acceptance testing because it could disrupt what you have going already, and you may have to do some retesting. And you're 2 weeks away from go live. Implementing something new 2 weeks away from go live is traditionally not the best decision to make or the best direction to go. So we recommend going live and then putting this in place after going live. So it just depends at where they're at in the project, where they are with budget, and obviously the size of the requests that they're making.
Well, that sounds like a good answer. So did I reframe my question the same, Jeff? I know you weren't really listening, but kind of listening.
I was listening. I just like to leave you hang whenever possible. So yeah. I mean, I think that's. Oh, go ahead, Gino.
No, I was gonna say I do have something to add onto this, and this is where I need to lift up the sales team as well as the delivery team. So our application consultants and developers is, we're really good at communicating at the beginning of a project what needs to be done. We won't just throw an estimate out there without getting people who are experienced in what's being estimated involved in the estimate. So that combined with doing planning engagements, having an application consultant come on site, having developers look at a customer's existing database helps us mitigate those change requests or I like to call them scope creep events throughout the life cycle of projects. So we are really good as a company at identifying those. And so that's due to, like I said, it's due to the sales staff communicating with the delivery team asking the right questions to the customer as well.
Nice. I like how he almost took over the podcast there, Jeff. What do you think? I think he has a knack for this.
Yes, I've noticed this as well. I think you and I should be concerned. Yes, we're gonna.
Well, Gino, I got a tough question for you. So, who's your least favorite account manager?
Least favorite? Wow.
We usually ask who's your favorite, but we're probably all paying close.
But we usually ask who's your favorite, but we've thought we would ask who's your least favorite because we want Kevin Clifford's name to be mentioned on the podcast.
Oh, it's definitely Kevin Clifford. He calls me way too much and throws way too much work at me. So it's definitely Kevin Clifford, and he'll know the reasons why.
Well, he's the only account manager that listens to the podcast, so we're going to hear about that one, Gino.
I'm sure I will get a phone call as well. One of the many phone calls I get throughout the day from him.
Kevin, we love you.
You do.
And I'll let you deal with Gino on that one. So anyway, Jeff, any other questions you have for Gino? Or
boy, I don't think so. What about you? You've got anything for him?
Well, one of the things that getting to know Gino over last year, I know you're in Chicago, Gino, and you have a young one now. That's how old now?
I do. I have an 8-month-old son.
That's so awesome. It's just, hear that and it sounds like you're getting some more sleep. Right.
I'm getting a little bit more than I was before, so I'm getting 3 hours instead of 2 now. So that's good. But no, he's such a great kid. He's growing up so fast, and it's so awesome that I'm able to see it. And my wife has the ability to stay home with him, which is great too. I don't have to bring him to daycare every single day. So it's really cool to be able to see him hit his milestones. He's starting to try to stand up on his own now. And to be honest, he's been sleeping all night since he was 4 months old. So it's
nice.
I'm blessed in more ways than one. He's a great kid.
That's very cool. Has Chad give you some stuff to get him starting to learn how to code now, or is he going to wait till he turns 1?
He is mesmerized by anything electronic. He likes to touch the cell phone to see the screen turn on. When he sees me typing on my keyboard and stuff moving around the screen in my monitor, he comes up and he tries to smack the keyboard to see if he can get something to move. So I think we do have a future Innovia programmer here, because it seems like we're bringing on family members all the time with Seth joining us. So I think it may be in his future. Who knows?
Oh, well, very cool. And so, do you have a favorite Chicago sporting team? That's not the White Sox.
It's a tough question, because I don't know how proud we can be of any of our Chicago teams.
Yeah.
But it'd have to be hockey. It'd be the Blackhawks.
Nice. And they had a good run, right? There were just 3 Stanley Cups in 7 years, 8 years. It was a great run. So
it's a great run. They need to get back on it.
Well, Gino, we appreciate your time, and we have a start for the podcast, and Jeff and I were talking earlier. We're really, when we end the podcast, Jeff, we need to get some more structure on this, don't you think? So should we just have like an ending, like we're done, end it like that, or should we have more of a smoother ending?
I don't know. I think we had to put this on Tim in the editing booth. Like I would really love him to have. Actually, maybe we can do that with a soundboard and just have like a mic drop sound, like poof, like like that's the end.
We're done.
But I want to thank you, Gino, for your time. This is our first podcast of 2020, and I think actually, if Tim's math skills are to be trusted, this is our 21st episode of the Innovia Conversation. Does that sound right, Steve?
That is correct.
So number 21 on the third day of 2020. So thank you, Gino.
Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And also, we will, Steve, you have anything else to add before I wrap it up?
Oh, absolutely. We're looking forward to having a great 2020. Actually, Gino has a webinar coming up too. Gino, you want to tell everybody about your webinar coming up?
Yeah. So I have a webinar coming up here in February. I think the February 11th is the date. But it's called Microsoft Flow is now Power Automate. So Microsoft did their magic and rebranded a strong piece of software, and I'm going to spend some time walking through how Power Automate can help you automate basic tasks.
Nice. It sounds like something that Jeff used to do. Jeff, are you getting real nervous now? That's something we used to talk about.
Ooh, like nervous / relaxed. It's nice to have more people on the team that are familiar with the new software. So I think that's awesome. And as always, you can find what's the latest and greatest events by going to Innovia.com/events. You can also pull recorded webinars. I'm not sure if you can get to the podcast from there. Steve would probably know that. Do you know if they can get to the podcast from Innovia.com?
Oh, absolutely. They can listen to it. So when I'm bored, I can just click onto it and listen to you talk. So
sweet.
It's
that will make you less bored. That seems to be counterproductive.
Got all this extra time. I'm going to listen to our podcast and hear how many times I say awesome.
There is a whole page dedicated to our podcast. So,
there is. And, but Gino, when I went to a user group, I came back and I told Jeff, said, I didn't realize that Flow would turn to Power Automate, is it Power Automate?
Yeah, Power Automate, yes.
That's very, very cool stuff. So Gino's is coming up. I'm actually doing a webinar on January 9th, 20 tips to crush your 2020 sales plan. So you can go to our website and sign up on that. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We're even on Facebook. So if you have Twitter, I'm at Walt Steven. Please follow me. And if you guys got a Twitter handle, now's your time to let everybody know.
I don't. Oh, I mean, I do, but I don't. I haven't posted in years.
Well, all right. Well, Gino, thank you. Jeff, thank you. And how about that for a goodbye? Goodbye, everybody.
Mic drops.